Normally it's a three-notched weekly preview, but it's this week's three-notched recap because there is no game this week. But the
That's
Dukes
right.
obliterate the Chanticleers into another dimension, folks. James Madison took down Coastal 56-14 on their home turf.
Yeah, pretty unbelievable. I mean, I was like, wrote on the website, I was like, look, last year was a cakewalk. It's not going this way this year. Chanticleers, Tim Beck's got them playing better defense. They might not have Grayson McCall, even though they did a little pump fake.
Which I feel like that should be against the rules, that pump fake, what they did.
Also, just remarkably dumb. It's like, he's our starter. And then it's like, well, the game starts in 3 minutes. So if he's not, like, that's going to be pretty clear, pretty quick to everyone.
They made their fans mad.
Stupid. He doesn't start. They play, what, they go with Vasco?
They went with Vasco, the dual threat QB who can't throw against the best rushing defense in the nation.
I've still struggled to piece that together because I thought Guest would be kind of the auto start.
And then didn't go with Guest at halftime. And also Guest had a full game of reps against this JMU defense a year ago.
He's in the portal today, so I don't know if that was related.
That may have been related. That's a good point.
But I wonder if it was like they're going to go with Vasco, and he's like, "Oh, cool, bye." Or if he was like, "I'm going in the portal," and they're like, "Whatever, we'll play Vasco." Who knows? His stat line ended up being okay, but they really did not do a whole lot, especially early in the game against JMU. And it was right. I didn't think it would be a dominant performance, yet it was. The Dukes 56-14. When they scored the first 35 points of the game, they just sort of cruised.
Yeah, they've outscored Coastal now 103-21 in 8 quarters of play.
That's insanity.
But like you said, Coastal's offense never really got going at any point in the game. In the first half, 4 of their 5 drives were 3 and outs. There was a 1-3 play drive that got a first down, but it ended in a fumble. So I counted that as a 3 and out because it was 3 and out. And then in the second half, they had 6 drives, 3 in each quarter. Both drive charts kind of went 3 and out, touchdown, fumble / end of game. So really nothing going at all for Coastal.
No, and it was we said JMU cruise. The first 2 drives for JMU were like super clunky, all the bad stuff from App State, and I was like, what is this? They're not locked in. Maybe they didn't run into the punt returner. It kind of looked like they did. I don't know if somebody else was shoved. I didn't see a replay, but they got a benefit there where they didn't get the call on that was picked up. They ended up getting like recovering a fumble, and then I think still punted immediately.
They did
On that drive.
I think that drive was 2 3 and outs. I think it was 3 and out, punt, 3 and out, punt.
Their drive chart after that is hilarious. It's touchdown, touchdown, interception, touchdown, 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 punt. So many touchdowns.
I mean, that's how you end up scoring, what, 56 points?
Yeah, that's a lot of them.
Reggie Brown and Elijah Surratt both eclipsed the 1,000 receiving yard mark on the season. They're the first ever Sun Belt Conference wide receiver duo to do that. And in this game, Elijah Surratt had 6 catches on 6 targets for 107 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, tacked on a rushing touchdown. And every single one of his catches was a successful play. Like, by the definition of a successful play, he had a 100% success rate.
He was phenomenal. He was absolutely unbelievable. He picked up where he left off in the App State game. The jet sweep run to him at the goal line was just, all kinds of fancy.
Whoa, what's happening to God. Whoa, got you all tickled.
That was something else. And then they, what was it? I think it was a 4th down play. One of his touchdowns where they did sort of a play action. They all expected a run. He's wide open for an easy touchdown. They were scheming some stuff up, but then Surratt's also just a very tough cover. But God, it was unbelievable offensively.
I want you to take a random guess what JMU's average starting field position was.
Oh God, it was pretty good. Their own like 40. Is it coastal territory?
It was their own 41.
That's crazy, though.
Guess Coastal's average starting field position.
Their own 20.
A little further away. Own 29.
That's a pretty sizable advantage, though. Yeah.
That is insane.
That's really, really good. They even ran the ball fairly well.
4th best rushing performance of the season in terms of total yardage.
Shout out to the offensive line. Josh Toner. He was on the Pro Football Focus all like offensive team for the week. Did not see that originally. Got a Facebook message from, I believe, his dad, and he was like, "Pretty good little stat here." I was like, "That actually is a great stat that I did not see." So, Sean Toner, shout out to Sean because I did not see that. But that's super impressive, especially for a guy like Toner who did not start the year on the starting offensive line. So to play the way that he did, and the whole offensive line did, missing two key starters at each tackle position from the beginning of the year, I thought was super impressive.
I think that may have been one of the best offensive line performances of the season. Like
And it
they they
create yeah.
they
I was just
dominated. There's rush yards available. McLeod had time. He was hardly ever pressured. He was only sacked once. I don't recall even what the sack was. I don't know if it was a pressure sack or just him holding onto the ball for a tick too long. I was
oh,
never what?
I do remember because it made me very angry. Perfect pocket. He like rolled out and took a sack.
Okay, so no, I wouldn't blame that on the offensive line. A near like perfect performance from them, and it resulted in the rush game looking good. Tyson Lawton had one of his better games of the year. He had a touchdown, 70 some yards. Um, the team as a whole went over 100 yards rushing. Really, really great stuff. JMU on their early downs were electric. The Dukes generated a first down on first or second down 32% of the time, which is very, very, very good. And they had a 54% success rate on third downs. So they were converting on later downs more often than not. And then on early downs, they were able to keep the chains moving, stay ahead of the chains, as that cliche is. And when they've done that this season, they've blown out the opponent. When they don't do that, that's when you have the App State game. And that's when you had all of those early season games where they let the opponent back into it. When the Dukes are firing on all cylinders, I don't think this season, because now this season's over, I don't think there was a Sun Belt team that could beat JMU when they were playing on all cylinders, because there was not a Sun Belt team that beat them outside of App State. Like Troy, JMU played what, 2 good quarters and couldn't beat them.
Yeah.
JMU played a quarter that was good against App State, and App barely beat them.
Dukes are wild. They're absolutely wild. And the amount of credit I feel, or not credit, I guess the blame that sometimes goes on coaches in Signetti when things don't go well, where it's like, oh, they were out coached. They deserve a ton of credit for like out coaching Coastal and out scheming them. So many plays on offense were wide open. I don't know what their plan was for Phoenix Sproles, but bad. Like they would
I,
just let him
I
run 7 yards, sit down in the zone, toss him the ball, and then like miss a tackle. It was horrendous. They didn't adjust. 11 catches for 99 yards.
and that was his like best game of the. It wasn't like that was his best game of the season. Just like a perfect time, a weird time for him to have this coming out party in game 12 of the season, and it was just very odd.
Yeah, and then Zach Horton had like a wide open touchdown that he catches and just sort of strolls in. Everything seemed to be open. McLeod seemed to know where to go with the ball. They ran it well. Defensively, it was pretty good. And every time it kind of went off a little bit, it seemed like they got a timely turnover. I think they forced 3 fumbles and recovered 3. Um, Earlier in the year, they didn't have that same level of like fumble recovery luck. So maybe that just sort of
It's
went
all
their
luck.
way in this one. But
It had that statistic is 90% luck,
yeah,
and it normally regresses to the mean. But you mentioned the coaching staff. I also want to shout out the coaching staff, because the adjustments they made after the bye week were mind-bogglingly crazy, mind-boggling, whatever. They were crazy. I mean, you don't often see a coaching staff completely change their philosophy. Pre-bye week, they were a run-heavy team that ran the ball more times than not on first down, running into a brick wall, being extremely stubborn, not changing anything. When they got a lead, they turtled. They didn't trust McLeod. They didn't trust the passing game, and they didn't really put the ball in his hands once they did create that lead, out of fear that he was going to fail. After the bye week, they passed it a ton more on early downs. They had more and more successful plays. They started to get away from the run game. There was the game against UConn where the run game just wasn't working. So they decided to pass it a butt ton. And it worked out with them scoring a whole lot of points. And it's just, you don't see it often where a coaching staff completely changes what their outlook is halfway through the season. The bye week came at a great time. You always hear that cliche, but the bye week came at a great time, and it offered them an ability to kind of change on the fly. They changed on the fly, and Jordan McLeod took over this offense. He took the bull by the horns, insert your cliche here, and took this Dukes team to another, took him to cloud nine. You could took him to McLeod 9, you could say.
Well said. Well said. But it's an interesting one as we look a little bit. I know there's a bowl game, but with no opponent yet, it makes it sort of easier to look to 2024. Still a game left. But if they can keep Signetti, I don't know that they can keep Signetti's staff. Like, even if they keep Signetti, I got to think some of the assistants get poached. You look at like Brian Haynes, he's done a great job with the defense. Mike Shanahan, I keep thinking he's older than he is. He's 33.
He's your
Offensive
age. He's
offensive
younger than you.
He's younger than me. I'm 48. He's 33 years old. You've got just a bunch of really good coaches. Obviously, Tino Sinceri draws a lot of headlines as well, but like Pat Kuntz at defensive line. I mean, they've just got great coaches that are like, for the play they're getting out of their players, are like woefully underpaid.
Yeah. Yeah. So even if they keep, here's a question for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about what this means for the program in just a little bit, kind of what their future outlook is a little bit more in depth. But to tease that now, would you rather keep the staff fully? I know this can't happen, but if Signetti left, would you rather have Signetti leave or keep this staff?
That's a good question. I feel
But
like they're
granted,
all.
if Signetti leaves, like half the staff's going with him.
Oh yeah, I think you want, like, I feel like Signetti is like the head of the snake, and you kind of want the head of the snake. Like, I think part of the reason they're so good is that they're like so in tune with each other and what they want to do, that it just works really well. And they've sort of had some chemistry where Shanahan was coaching receivers at multiple stops for Signetti, or at least at Elon. Like, he knows these guys really well, right? His Robo, the offensive line coach, I think he knows him very, very well. They've been together for quite a while now. So I think if you can keep it mostly intact going into 2024, it's going to be nuts, with Signetti being sort of that key piece where I think, like, if you have him, I feel pretty good about what they're doing. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a loaded coaching staff. It's got to be one of the best, if not the best, like, overall coaching staffs in the group of five.
And it might be one of the most underpaid.
Yeah.